Hello and welcome to another episode of Connecticut at your service. We come to you live each Tuesday at 6:30 via Soundview Community Media TV. And as we do every week, we interview individuals that are making a difference in the work that they do and how they serve our community. And as always, this is no different. Today, my guest is Linnea Collins. And she is the creative director of the Teaching Artist Hub, based in Middletown, Connecticut, where she acts on her passion for mentorship and collaboration in the arts by connecting and providing spaces for teaching artists. She is the creative director, I said that. One of the things that I have to tell you, I gotta just go off the cuff and just kind of do that. So she is such an inspiration. She's a wife, a mom, a teaching artist, an artist mentor. She's a certified artist trainer. She's a poet. She's an actress. She's an author. I'm like, listen, her anchor name is Nia Knows. And I'm like, I want to know what you know. So now we're going to know. So thank you so much for joining us on the show. And before we even get started, I need to know, what does Nia know? Because I want to know.
Hi, Carmen. Thank you so much for having me here. Oh, God, what does Nia knows, right? Well, Nia knows I'm into a little bit of everything, as you know. I'm part of, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. So I tap into a lot of different forms of art. You know, that is my passion. And so wherever it shows up in my life is where I put it. I am very passionate with the things that I do. First and foremost, my family. I've got 4 daughters at home. They're my pride and my joy. And so I learn through them, you know, what I do in the community. But I love to bring art to community spaces. I'm an advocate for racial justice, advocate for teaching artistry. I've got a book coming out and a new play coming out. And so that's a little bit about me in a nutshell, but I know we'll get into it.
We have a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So first, you do so many things, and I've interviewed other creatives before, and they tell me that they knew at a young age. Is that true for you?
Oh, absolutely. I knew by the time I was 7 years old that I would be an artist, I would be a writer, or I would be doing something in the performing arts world. So yeah, I absolutely knew that from the book.
So I remember when we were talking off camera, how you referenced a lot and gave a lot of homage to your grandparents. Tell me about them and just how kind of your acting kind of happening through that, because I thought that was such just an amazing story.
So my first language is sign language. And by the time I was 7 years old, I just remember standing in front of the TV screen, and my grandma would say to me, you know, can you sign that for me? Tell me, what are they singing? You know, what is Michael Jackson saying? What is Whitney Houston saying? And so I would stand right there in front of the TV screen, and I would have to sign it all out for her. And there is no just signing. You know, your signing turns into performance, and that's what it was for me.
And animated.
It's very animated, yeah. And so that's where it started at a very, very young age, just standing there and feeling the vibration through the floor, coming through the TV, and having to put language to that through my sign. And so growing up in silence, you know, in the deaf community, that was my way artistically to be able to translate that to them.
I love that. And I know that we also talked about how writing was very important in your teen years. So tell me a little bit about that and kind of like how it got you here to where you are an author.
I know. So for me, writing started at a very early age too, you know. I always wrote in my journals. I kept diaries stacked up in my room. I would sit in the closet. I would sit in closed spaces. And I would just write and write and write. And by the time I was 13, I had novels, I had books written, you know, just sitting on the shelf. And I would write back and forth to classmates, and they were never just small notes. They were just essays, long essays, wow. Yeah. So it did. It started very early for me, but I did notice that being raised in silence, that's where I poured all of my creativity, was through my writing.
Now, you didn't live with your grandparents, or did you live with your grandparents?
I did for the most part, yeah. You know, I had a home with my mom, of course, but I was raised by my grandparents. And so I spent a lot of time in their house.
And you speak 3 languages, you told me, right?
Yeah.
Sign,
French and English.
And by the time we're done with this, it may be Spanish. I don't know. We might go there. I'm not sure. So I know that you mentioned that kind of through all the journaling and just kind of like living in silence and just being able to pour out what was in your mind, your body, and your spirit, that you started, that you're a poet. Mm-hmm. How did, I can't even imagine what kind of creativity it takes to like write a poem that would even rhyme or make sense. But I do, when you listen to music, you're trying to interpret what the person is saying.
Yeah.
So I know that you're a big champion of like domestic violence. You're a big advocate. It gravitates in your work. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, to be honest,
your poetry and kind of like how it evolved.
Yeah, well, poetry for me, I fell in love with poetry as a teenager. Just watching, deaf jams, and wanting to be a spoken word artist, going to Signature Cafe in Hartford, doing my little thing back in the day. Finding myself in open mic spaces. So that's a lot of my poetry came early on in my life. But I resorted back to writing, I would say, when I went through very heavy times in my adulthood. And I faced a lot of lived experiences of domestic violence and abuse and substance abuse during that time. And so it was another realm of going right back into silence, I'm not deaf myself, obviously, but in my adult life, it's what I knew. It was a habit for me to just go into silence. And so during those rough times of my life, I found myself writing heavily again. And in that writing, I found myself doing poetry again. And that was just my way of releasing the pain and putting it on the page.
Wow. I want to that really is a really good segue to, I found some pictures of something that happened yesterday. Okay. So tell me a little bit about that. What's going on here?
Okay, so this is part of my cast. I have a play coming up on June 22nd at the Oddfellows Playhouse Theater in Middletown. What you see here in these photos is Tashala Williams, Janelle Verdejo, Leslie Bivens, and we're sitting there with Enzima Hutchins at the Enzima Poetry Cafe, talking a little bit about the play and what's upcoming in it. Yeah.
Wow. And this is so this is a book you wrote, right?
Yes.
And the book is, what is it about?
Okay, so My Heart is Art. This book came out in 2018. I wrote a collection of recovery poems in this book. It's very heavy material. It's domestic violence. It's just, a lot of the recovery that I was going through during those hard times. I found myself in a closet writing. And this was during the times that I was going through those moments. And then one day, my father told me, like, you need to put this in a book. And he invited me up to the group homes up in New London. And I sat with those women there, and I just released all my poetry. And they were like, where's your book at? When are you going to come out with something? And so they really inspired me to, make that book. And so I did that back in 2018. And now we're finally turning it into the play.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are just turning in, we are here with Lania Collins, and she is the creative director of The Teaching Artist, and she is so talented. If you're just tuning in, we've been talking about a book that she is published. If you want to find out more about her or her book or the tickets to her next event, you can log on to where? Nia?
NiaKnows.com.
That's so easy. Like I said, I want to know what you know. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, I know that you've been a teaching artist for 7 years, and I call myself a teaching artist, and I'm nowhere near what you are, so I give you homage, right? But for those that don't really understand, what is a teaching artist?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. Like, what exactly is a teaching artist, right? So we're not art teachers, but we turn our passion of art into what we do, and we're able to bring that to community or to schools and to teach through our modality of art. for me as a multidisciplinary artist, I go into the school system or communities and I teach creative writing, I teach poetry, I teach theater, sign language, you name it. I just bring it, bring whatever is the need for that time that's necessary.
I love that. And one of the things we talked about, because we've known each other probably about a year, I know we were connected through one of the groups that we both kind of belong to. And I think that one of the things that I respected about you so much is that, definitely about whatever the creative person is, whether it's man or woman, but I see you very much girl power type, okay? I see you doing that. I see you connecting us other artists together. You used to have these coffee conversations where artists, doesn't matter what kind, we would just get together and talk about what was going on. Tell me a little bit about what's next for you in that, not only for you, but in that, in your role as, other than your play, because we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge advocate for the arts, and so being a teaching artist, one of my main focuses with the Teaching Artist Hub was to kind of create a platform for artists to network and collaborate, right? And so I noticed the need here in Connecticut that we are so segregated in the arts, even though we have such diverse communities and we have so many wonderful, talented artists throughout our state. And so for me, I felt the need to bring them together, right? And so we had the privilege of having you at our last Teaching Artist Conference, but my main focus with the Teaching Artist Hub is to have mentorships for artists, which I'm thrilled that we were able to award 6 pairs this year.
6, right? And that's
6
annual,
pairs.
right?
Yep, that's
you guys
every
do that
year.
Annual.
I give out a mentorship grant for them, and I love the biggest thing that I love about it is to go to their actual workshops and be a participant in what they do. And so it gives me an opportunity just to see what's happening throughout Connecticut and see all these different teaching artists do their thing. And so the biggest highlight of it is that we get to focus on them, put our money back into the arts and have them teach one another, right? So when one person is teaching, the other's learning, but then that person is learning from the teacher as well.
I love that. And this is annual, right? And there is an application process.
Yeah.
Could you tell me, since you mentioned it, and I know that there's some artists watching that might be wanting to be interested in the next level and the support that you offer to creatives. So what does the application look like and how?
Yeah, so every year it's a little different. We might tweak it, a few questions, but pretty much in December, I like to do what I call like a teaching artist speed meet and greet. And so I kind of invite the whole state of artists are more than welcome to come. We always have it at the Oddfellows Playhouse Theater. It gives them an opportunity for any artist to come in this space and do kind of like a little speed meet and greet with one another, find out who's who in the room and get to know each other, right? The following month in January, I kind of do like a Zoom informational meeting on exactly what that application entails, what do you got to do to get in there, the questions that are going to be asked of them, and give them an opportunity to write those proposals. What we're looking for is uniqueness. We're looking for diverse groups. We're looking for different types of arts, not just same old, same old. And so we kind of want to uplift artists and give them an opportunity to shine. And then by the time February or March comes around, that's when we make our selections. And it's a very selective process. So we get anywhere between 5 to 6 pairs every single year. And
that you award, right?
That we award, and it's $1,000 for each person, for the mentor and the mentee to come together and work on a project of their choice, and then they are free to, do that.
That is awesome. And they have to apply as a pair.
They have to
So
apply
it's an
as a
adult
pair.
and a person and another. Is there any age of the individual?
It's 18 and over. So
Okay, for
yeah,
both.
Yeah, it just
Okay.
has to be like a very seasoned teaching artist who is mentoring an aspiring artist.
That is amazing. And I know that you mentioned about the conference that you had. So that's you just completed your 2nd year, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, because
So
that is
exciting.
honestly really exciting, and to witness it was amazing.
It was very exciting, and we're so happy that we were able to do that 2 years now in a row with the help of the Connecticut Office of the Arts funding us for that. But we do this Teaching Artist Conference. We call it the Southern New England Teaching Artist Conference, where we bring in 9 workshop facilitators throughout our state to run completely different types of workshops. We like to focus on healing arts, business arts, and just like random teaching artists and what they're doing, right? So this year, that's what we had in the building, just a array of different varieties of workshops going on, from writing workshops to your business workshop, Creatives and Capital, just different things. And we kind of highlight those artists. And then we have a keynote speaker every year who comes in too and, talks about what they're doing as well.
I love that you put your money where your mouth is, because some of the people that were the facilitators were other artists.
They're all artists.
So you're giving an opportunity for individuals to explore, to advance, to, and you mentioned business. A lot of people don't really, artists are very passionate. They're very passionate. And I know you, so I know you are too. So, and sometimes we can't put a price to what we do. Like somebody, I'll be like, I like that. I love your art. How much is it? And they'll be like, oh, I can't. And they'll just give it to you. But it's real business.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for artists that are looking? Well, let me rephrase that question. When you did the conference, what were some of your findings that artists said they wanted?
So on the application or on the registration form, I always ask those questions. What is it that you want to learn in this conference? What are you coming in for? And the number one thing that they come in for is those business workshops. So they want to know how to market themselves properly. They want to know where can they find grants, what are the resources that are available here in Connecticut. And they want to know pretty much how can they elevate themselves in the teaching artist world. How can they turn their passion into a career? So that's what I'm finding is the need right now for artists.
And there's two different things, right? So you can either, and it is possible for an independent artist who's not, in some cases, not even licensed, right? Not even registered as a business. But if they're an artist, to participate, and then you have where you have, if that is a business, and can either go alone or partner with a nonprofit to do some of that artwork, right?
Absolutely.
Is that an option for some artists?
Absolutely, yeah. We welcome all artists, seasoned artists, aspiring artists, artists of all kinds and all backgrounds, because we want them to come in the building, especially the new ones, We want to teach them and show them the different outlets in different ways. And even for the seasoned ones, show them new resources, or maybe there's new technology that's out right now that they don't know how to, tap into. We want to offer those things to our artists so that
And
they
collaborate.
have it. Absolutely.
So I know that you said that kind of who inspires you is your family, but are there other artists and other people that inspire you to kind of, or that you like to collaborate with?
Oh, just anybody in the community doing things, It doesn't matter how seasoned they are. I love to tap in just to see who's doing what, where they're doing it, and be as community connected as I could be. Yeah.
So remind us again how they reach you.
Oh, you can find me at niaknows.com. You can also go to the teachingartisthub.org to find out anything about the arts. We have all of our resources on there as well.
Oh, amazing. And we got a call.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to Connecticut at your service. Do you have a question for our guests?
Hi, yes I do. I'm not really in the artist scene, but I was wondering how you would kind of describe the Connecticut artist scene and what you love most about it.
Oh, what
Great question.
what I love most about the arts is, one of my favorite things about the arts is when I can drive through a city such as Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven, and see art on the buildings. I think that is one of my favorite things is public art. The murals that we see, the messages that we can see through visual arts. For me personally, being a writer, I pour my artistic ability into my writing, and so I'm a big reader, so I love to read poetry. I love to read books and things like that. But public art is probably my favorite of them all. Yeah.
I think me too.
And the messages are so powerful, just driving through a city and seeing it on a building. I think that is the most powerful thing.
I think that's awesome. Thank you so much, caller. Did you have another question?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Listen, thank you, and please keep watching.
Yes, okay.
I love that you talked about public art, because I think that's so incredible. And I don't know if you remember when everything was happening around Black Lives Matter, and people were just doing these artwork, and they were just like, show up at this street with a paintbrush.
Yep.
You didn't need to know how to paint, because there was always an artist kind of leading that, and then people would just engage in it. I absolutely love that. Have you been involved in any public art?
Well, So I do sit on the board for the Middletown Racial Justice Coalition, and I am a teaching artist with the Connecticut Center for Nonviolence. And so one of my passions is to advocate for racial justice and to be able to combine my love of racial justice with art in so many different factors. I'm definitely a part of that. And so whether it's in community settings or whether it's in the school system, to get the youth together and do something on a building is so powerful. I love it. I absolutely love that.
So I know, like, I'll just give you an example of some of the things that happen in Bridgeport. They sometimes put these public announcements to kind of like do artists, and I will tell you that I have this peeve every year it comes out, because some of the artists don't know how to scale, right? So they could do like a portrait that looks amazing, but they can't put it on a 100-foot wall, you know? So I think that as a community, we could do better, you know, and champion that, because it actually rules out some really good artists. What kind of supports does the teaching artist and someone working with you, how do you help them?
Yeah, we focus and we highlight on different organizations throughout Connecticut. And I know like Rise Up Arts, if I was to link anybody with somebody that's doing stuff like that, I would immediately say, why don't you go join Rise Up Arts?
They're
because
wonderful.
That's what they're doing. Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
yep.
So,
And they're actually, one of their bigger projects is these customizable picnic tables
Yes.
that are adaptable to people in wheelchairs.
I've seen that.
I think that they're an incredible organization, and they've been a guest here.
Oh, wonderful.
So
yeah.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
So as an artist and people, I'm gonna throw it back on a personal kind of thing. So people that are like emerging, like they write, they paint, whatever. What is your advice to kind of get them to not be silent?
To not be silent, I would just tell them to release themselves. And the best way that I knew how to release myself was through my writing. But if it's not through writing, painting, canvassing, music, these are all different forms of art. Dancing, right? These are all different forms of art modalities that they can tap into to release. And I think that holding on to pain can be detrimental to an artist. And so a lot of artists that I know have moments of depression in their lives, and they resort to art in order to release that. So my biggest thing I would tell them to do is, if you have to do that alone in a room and you release it through any of those artistic ways, that's your release, right?
Do you recommend that people like share it with a friend, or or is there something that's very independent?
For me, I always kept my art to myself until I showed up in those domestic violence shelters and in those rehab centers and recovery centers. The moment I shared it with them and it became relatable, that's when I felt like it was self-therapy. It was therapeutic for myself to be able.
And it was safe.
And it was safe, and it was a place that I can share, you know? And that only opened up more doors for me to want to continue to share and put it on platforms.
And just mentor other people to kind of like find their voice. Yeah. So we just have like a few minutes left. So I wanted to give you some time to talk about your play and your next one, and how people can get tickets and meet you, how fabulous you are and multi-talented. So we're gonna put up the thing about my Heart is Art.
Yes, My Heart is Art, the play. It's coming Sunday, June 22nd. It's from 5 to 8 p.m. My whole purpose in doing this is I really want to bring awareness to mental health and the arts, and we are literally taking it from the page to the stage.
I love that.
Yeah, so all of those recovery poems that you can find in the book, which is sold on Amazon.com, you will see all of that being brought to stage live. There's choreo poems. It's more of a dramatic monologue,
being
brought together by 7 of us different casts.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you can find that on niaknows.com.
And just to give, so the actors are playing who?
Oh, they are playing different versions of me. So
I love that.
Yeah, I am so privileged to have my daughter Janelle. She was 15 years old. It's been a journey with us to have her play my shadow self, and so she teaches me every day, right? But she's learning me through this play as well, and so she has to experience very deep, dark places that I've been through. And so she gets to play a very heavy role, but the other actors, you know, there's someone who's playing wisdom, there's somebody who's playing trapped, there's, you know, who represents abuse, somebody else who's playing different and, you know, her artistic quirkiness. And so these are all different parts of me that they get to play.
I think you're just incredible, and
Thank
I can't
you.
say that enough. You know, so any last words, or, I mean, we still have a few minutes, but last words or just recommendation to other artists as they launch a business?
As they launch a business, I would tell artists to seek what resources are in your community. Definitely go onto the teachingartisthub.org so you can be connected to those resources as well. Don't stay hidden. Get out there, you know, be in your community, join things. If you see events that are going on, show up and become noticeable in those spaces, become known in those spaces. People want to know who you are. They want to know what you're doing. They want to know what's going on in your state, in your communities. And so don't stay hidden, you know, come out the closet the way that I had to come out in those ways and introduce yourselves to us.
I love that. Any final words or anything that you would like our viewers to know, aside from how incredible you are? Any inspiration, any words, any thoughts? I don't know if you want to rattle off a quick little poem that you might know. I don't know. She's like, I'm really putting her on the spot.
I could do my Heart is Art poem.
Oh,
I don't know how much time we have, but okay.
How long is it?
2 minutes.
2 minutes? I think we got 2 minutes.
All right. My heart is like a piece of art, a masterpiece, molded from the very start. Can't you see? It's kind of like a Monet, blurry to the eye, but really clear as day. Some say Picasso, maybe I'm crazy, just delusional. Could it be? Maybe. Scatterbrained all over, I can't even think straight. Shattered glass mirrors, looking life in the face. I love my art, my colors, my painting. I'm a picture perfect one, but I'm sitting in a rose frame. My blues, they give me my highs and my lows, and my yellow is golden, it glitters like gold. Green, hey, what can I say? Mary Jane and Benji's strawberry banana sitting in her frenzy. Purple, she's dope, giving me my royalty. I'm sipping on Crown and Coke, those black days destroyed me. Red, that's the color that carries me. From the love to the blood, my skin tone is my red bone. Golden brown eyes just to complement my afro. Aquafina clear got me feeling real heavenly. I'm draped up from head to toe. I'm covering up my purity. I said my heart is like a piece of art, a masterpiece, molded from the very start.
That is amazing. All right, I just want to make sure that we know how to reach you. I thank you so much for blessing me with that. I was hoping you were going to have a little something for me, because I want to know what you know. Okay, how do we reach you?
All right, niaknows.com. You can always call my phone, 860-899-6352, or you can find me at theteachingartisthub.org.
Okay, and we have been here with Nia Collins, who is just incredible, an artist, just a poet, just multi-talented in the arts arena. So Nia, thank you so much for your friendship, for your mentorship, for your leadership, all the ways that you show up in the world, and all the way that you help other artists in our community.
Aww.
And for our guests, we welcome you back next week to Connecticut at your service, where we'll meet another individual who's just amazing in what they do back to the community. You can reach Nia, who's a wife, a mom, a teaching artist, a mentor, a certified arts trainer, creative director, poet, actress, and mentor. And we'll see you guys next week right here on Connecticut at your service.